Here's your wrestling news for April 19th, 2023, and we're kicking off with WWE. And the post-WrestleMania Raw saw multiple changes caused by Vince McMahon, leading the show to be panned by fans, and the executive chairman has learned his lesson. McMahon has kept away from all WWE programming since then, and Fightful Select reports that he wasn't at this week's Raw in Arkansas. While McMahon said he will oversee creative on a higher level, he won't be in the weeds, and after the disastrous post-Mania Raw, McMahon is keeping away. This week's Raw saw Dakota Kai face Bianca Belair, with the EST once again emerging on top. Damage Control members Bayley and Io Sky were at ringside for the match, but it turns out the WWE originally had more for them to do. Fightful Select has learned that there had originally been a Damage Control backstage segment that didn't run, but there's no confirmation on what that would have been. We also can't say for certain why the segment was cut, or if this was solely a Triple H decision, or whether the game's father-in-law gave his input as well. There have been rumors that cracks are forming in the Damage Control storyline, and it may not be long before the group is split. But we'll just have to see what's in store after their segment was cut this week. In the weeks running up to WrestleMania 39, Bray Wyatt vanished from WWE programming, and an injury has kept him out of action ever since. The new face of fear grabbed the attention of everyone when he returned to WWE last October, but now, over 6 months later, what's going on with the former Universal Champion? Fans who are eager to see Bray back will now be disappointed to learn that Wyatt is still far off a return, according to Zero News, who report Bray Wyatt is still far off a return and has been pulled from internal run sheets. Possibly won't even be mentioned at the draft at all. Health issues, they're looking into it to avoid complications in the future, but no timetable for his return as it stands. It's not just physical issues that have kept Bray away though, as it has also been reported that Wyatt's mental health has also been a factor in his absence. Prior to Bray being pulled from TV, there had been plans for him and Uncle Howdy, who we all know by now is being portrayed by Bo Dallas. Dallas and Howdy are the same height and roughly the same build, though the character looks slightly bigger due to the outfit, and it was always suspicious that whenever Howdy was due to appear on TV, Bo was reported to be in the same town as that week's Raw. In another report, it is revealed that due to the creative changes, WWE are thinking of pulling the plug on Uncle Howdy and Dallas being on screen entirely. That doesn't mean Bo would be gone for good though, as it is said that if this decision is reached, WWE would consider keeping Dallas around as a backstage producer. WWE, at one time at least, had huge plans for Bo and Bray, and there was even talks of a gimmick match, possibly another Lights Out match, between Wyatt and Uncle Howdy at WrestleMania 39. Those plans were nixed in favor of Bray versus Lashley before those plans were also scrapped, and we'll have to keep waiting to see when, if ever, Wyatt and Uncle Howdy are back on TV. Last December, Bill Goldberg's contract with WWE expired, and the former Universal Champion has been a free agent ever since. Since then, Goldberg has claimed that WWE owes him a retirement match, and it turns out he may be literally entitled to the bout. While speaking with 93.7 The Ticket, Goldberg addressed his wrestling future and said he's not leaving the business until he gets a proper send-off. He added, "If I go on a world tour and promote it myself, that's a possibility. Hey, I'm a businessman, and I'm fortunately, in the position I firmly believe to where I can still make it happen. At the end of the day, like I said, I do believe that my character deserves a proper send-off. Until that happens, man, I don't believe I'm hanging them up, Anything and everything is an option. I'm very much leaning towards promoting it myself and doing a 4-city world tour." Vince McMahon and I had a handshake understanding that, after the Roman Reigns match, I would have a proper retirement match. And that hasn't come to fruition through them, so therefore, nobody puts a stamp on my career. Nobody tells me when I'm done, period. When somebody tells me that, I kind of like to fight against it. I like to do things my own way, and I go out of my way. And I certainly don't go out, under Roman Reigns, 3 weeks after I've had COVID and agreed to a match. Goldberg's most recent match came at Elimination Chamber 2022, and the Jewish Hall of Famer has said he hopes to compete in Israel before he calls it a career. Tony Khan has said the idea of Goldberg in AEW is exciting, and it's been reported that Bill has been approached by several companies, but the legend is still waiting on his retirement match from WWE. When Cody Rhodes lost at WrestleMania, the wrestling world immediately debated the result, with many believing that the show was the perfect time to crown a new champion. One person who knows Cody very well is MJF, and it should come as no surprise that AEW's Loudmouth has had his own take on what happened in Los Angeles. Speaking to Fightful, MJF was asked about Cody's loss, and the AEW World Champion was able to keep in character while sharing his thoughts, and was able to get in a dig at Cody's physique. He said, "Oof, that's a loaded question. So me and Cody Rhodes, we have an interesting past. He's been my friend, he's been my mortal enemy, all wrapped in a cute little bow. I think he came across like a top guy. I think he's transformed his body like I have in the past year, but let's be honest, I'm bigger than him and I'm in better shape than he is, but he looked like a top guy. He was presented as a top guy, he had a top guy outing, he had a top guy match, he just didn't win. And unfortunately, some nights you don't win. But Cody Rhodes, I think, is the epitome of putting the work in. Everything that he's accomplished is literally only because of him, and he's far too humble to admit that. He'll say that it has something to do with somebody else, but he's got it done himself, and he should be proud of that. Was I happy to see him lose at Mania? I don't know if I would have been happy if he won or lost. All I know is that he had an incredible outing, and it was probably the best match of the entire night." Before Cody Rhodes becomes the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, as many predict that he will, he'll have to face Brock Lesnar at WWE Backlash, and whatever comes next, MJF will no doubt be watching closely. Later this month, WWE will host its latest draft, which Triple H has promised will be the biggest ever, with every WWE superstar eligible to be drafted. The game's wording has led many to suspect that NXT superstars will be drafted, especially as there was no call-ups to the main roster on the post-Mania Raw or SmackDown. We may now know one name who is set to arrive, as WRKD Wrestling reports that former NXT UK champion Tyler Bate has been seriously impressing WWE higher-ups. Bate's recent WWE main event match with Dolph Ziggler has really impressed those backstage, and it's reported that his name is going around as a possible draft pick. Bate has been with WWE for some years now, and in addition to being the first United Kingdom champion, is also a former NXT and NXT UK tag team champion. We won't know for sure about Bate's future until the WWE draft concludes on May 1st, but would you like to see him called up? Sound off in the comments below. In 2020, WWE decided to outlaw third-party deals for its roster, resulting in many losing out on the additional income they had been earning on Twitch. When Zelina Vega said she supported unionizing, which would have made this ban by WWE more difficult, she was released within minutes, in a highly controversial move at the time. Now though, it seems that those days away from Twitch are over, as Fightful were the first to report that WWE has reached a new agreement to the streaming platform. The agreement will allow the superstars back on Twitch with almost no restrictions, and there will be a three-way split of revenue, with Twitch and the talent taking the majority. While there will be almost no restrictions, that does not mean talent are allowed to stream with people from other companies unless WWE management approves it first. It was also noted that talent that we spoke to were very happy about the deal, but it was not noted exactly how much of a cut WWE is taking. This news comes a year after WWE held a meeting in which superstars were informed that they would be able to expand their third-party platforms again, and while this took longer than expected, it has finally come through. Many WWE superstars lost a lot of extra income when WWE nixed third-party deals in 2020, and the morale at the time took a huge hit. But now those superstars will get the chance to connect with their fans, play some video games, and make some money on Twitch again. During the post-WrestleMania Raw, Seth Rollins immediately walked out of the show after his segment, breaking protocol, which states you have to stay till the end. Rollins was furious about the changes to his segment, which happened while it was going on, and now his newest piece of merchandise is raising some eyebrows. On Twitter, the Black and Brave Pro Wrestling Academy shared a new piece of merchandise, a shirt featuring Rollins' pre-WWE name, Tyler Effin' Black. For a decade, fans have been able to purchase merchandise for Seth Rollins and The Shield, and now fans will be able to pick up a piece of merchandise celebrating Rollins' pre-WWE days. When Rollins stormed out of the post-Mania Raw, many were shocked, and immediately there were questions about his status with WWE. After all, we saw what happened when Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out of the May 16, 2022 episode of Raw, but history isn't repeating itself. When Sean Ross Sapp asked his sources in WWE, he was told that there are no backstage conflicts between WWE and Rollins, despite what happened earlier this month. In fact, this week's Raw not only saw Rollins compete, but put on an incredible match with The Miz, which was the brainchild of Shane "Hurricane" Helms. WWE's resident superhero has been a backstage producer for some time now, and has been commended for his efforts on multiple occasions. The Miz vs. Rollins match also received great feedback backstage in WWE, and if you enjoyed the bout, you know the third person in the equation to thank. More from Raw now, as this week's show ended with Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Matt Riddle beating the Judgment Day, but the action didn't stop there. After the show went off the air, Dominik Mysterio was left in the ring with the Faces as well as the LWO, and ate a stunner by Kevin Owens. After the babyfaces posed for the crowd, they departed the ring as Rey Mysterio's music played, and some stuck around for selfies with the fans in Arkansas. This week's Raw was an interesting one for the Judgment Day, who made a pact with the Bloodline but were unable to hold up their end of the deal. We imagine that Roman Reigns will be far from pleased with the group after they failed to defeat the Bloodline's enemies, and Dominik Mysterio and the rest may have made some powerful enemies of their own this week. It's been 16 days since the blockbuster announcement that WWE is to be acquired by Endeavor, who will form a new company consisting of Vince McMahon's wrestling promotion and the UFC. As previously reported, Endeavor president Mark Shapiro has said that synchronicity will be a priority for Endeavor once this deal is finalized, and cuts are expected on both sides. This has led many to believe that mass layoffs to WWE's roster are back on the agenda, similar to what WWE did from 2020 to 2022 before Vince McMahon's retirement. Speaking to Light Shed Live, WWE CEO Nick Khan said that he expects there to be $50 million in cuts, the same number UFC cut in 2016 when they were acquired by Endeavor. Khan said that this $50 million figure is a really conservative number and will likely be much higher, and said that these aggressive cuts won't affect the product. If the on-screen product is to remain untouched, then fans shouldn't expect to see superstars dropping like flies from TV. But odds are we'll only know if Khan is telling the truth once these cuts start happening later this year. Next week, NXT will host its Spring Breakin special, and the Gold brand has quite a stacked card in store. After turning heel, Braun Breaker broke up Chase University's party last week and has vowed to vanquish the faction at Spring Breakin when he faces Andre Chase. The NXT Women's Championship will be on the line when Indy Hartwell defends against former champion Roxanne Perez, as well as Tiffany Stratton in a triple threat match. During this week's episode of NXT, WWE also booked Lyra Valkyria versus Cora Jade for the Spring Breakin special, and Pretty Deadly will take on Tony D'Angelo and Stax. In what'll likely be the main event, Grayson Waller will get one more shot at the NXT Championship when he faces Carmelo Hayes, and we'll have to see if the Aussie can finally win the big one. And we're ending with more from NXT, as Noam Dar was on the show, and there was a slight change made to his presentation. Instead of being referred to as the NXT UK Heritage Cup Champion, Dar is now the NXT Heritage Cup Champion, another sign of NXT UK being done for good. WWE brought NXT UK to an end last year to make way for NXT Europe, though news on that brand has gone cold, but expect to see much more of the NXT Heritage Cup Champion on the Gold brand.